and from Isaacs. Thank you very much. Jaime, we would like to thank you for the possibility of participating in the first day of this workshop. Jaime is very well known of you. He's the director of the University, Andean University Simón Bolívar in Quito. That is part of the Andean System of Integration, but it's one of the founders and the key pieces of the movement and the social medicine and collective health in Latin America. Jaime, since the 70s, before many international organizations did it, he started talking about social determinations, and we know a text of Jaime that was called Political Economy and Health, where this social determination is presented. This is a very important topic to understand this issue, and Jaime continued working with the social determination, and the meeting of Rio +20 had a brilliant participation, and he's going to be here with us in social determination as a tool to build a new perception of public health. The perception that is covered by the thought of the social medicine and collective health. So welcome, Jaime. We pass you the floor, and we're paying attention to your participation.
En primer lugar, una verificación.
First of all, you hear me, Oscar? Yes. Thank you very much for the privilege of being here in this important platform in the public system. I'm sorry not being physically with you because of personal matters, health mainly. I would like to compliment all my colleagues and friends that are here. Jose Gomez Temporon, Oscar, and many, Roberto, and other friends that are over there, my Ecuadorian friends. And a period of some extra minutes after the 20 minutes that I gave me, I'm not going to extend myself. I got to respect time. Talk about the social determination of health as a tool is to include ourselves in a position, an epistemological and political position of rupture. So the need of a profound change. Yeah, you can continue, Jaime. We have two main goals that we think that are most important in the extraordinary change of the paradigms of the distribution of health. Contact the determinant models and the determination model and discuss the critical nodes, methodological and operational, and the lines of development of a model of social determination of health in face of the challenges of the managing of all of this, and of course research. And my position is going to be based on the work that we have carried out, contributing the theoretical international work of many doctorates of the Andean community and the Andean University, in the University of Columbia, researchers of Brazil that we are working with, and the British Columbia researchers, and Nancy Krieger of the Harvard University, in cooperation with the efforts that you have. I'm referring to you that a publication called The Social Determination of Health as a Tool for Rupture, as a publication. I would like to tell you that the key issues that I want to work are establish as a concrete empirical base for my thoughts two cases, dengue in Ecuador and food in Brazil, And after that, talk about the contrast and determinants, and the critical intersectorial situations that really concerns ourselves, this challenges in establishing a proposal for the doctorate workshop that we're organizing for November. The first case of illustrative cases, I would like to stress two cases. Dengue in Ecuador mentioned that usually establishing public health, a problem like dengue is focused in the analysis of the empirical work of the causing factors known as risk, and we get into this world of the virus, the mosquito, and the personal positions. Those are mainly part of this epidemiological issues that are developed. But when we see a case of a city, you have the image of the city of Machala and the southern coast of Ecuador and the Pacific area. All the yellow areas are areas of banana plantation, and the city is surrounded by these great spaces of growing industry. Not only the process of monoculture, but this is growing the land grabbing process, that is the land grabbing of land. You can see 94 and 97 image, how the property of the land has concentrated in areas of this area that we're referring to. The peasants, many of them organized around the Koppenbau, and the organizations of this work, as it was done before, the banana and the cocoa, in areas where we have many different fighting against a mono cultivation. They don't use plastics. But the agro-industry in this farming and cultivation multiplies this system of contamination by chemicals, the massive use of plastic, and the heating also, the loss of biodiversity and biomass, and the loss of soil, and all of this linked to a reduction of the soil is going to increase the heating. And we have evidence of some curves of average evidence of the increase in temperature. And all of this, as you know it, very well linked to the shortening of the cycle of the reproduction of the mosquito, the dengue mosquito. There is a group of processes that I'm going to get into detail about agro-industry, together with the neoliberal development of the cities, where these great processes on great scale undermine not only the social and ecosystemic growth of the habitat and the development of sectors, and where we have the vulnerability and exposure to the banana production, that they use agrotoxics that kill those who eat the mosquito, and multiplying the possibility of this mosquito growing, and they're killing the resources. An agro-industry without any certification, they destruct the biomass, they increase the heating, and a fracture, ecological fracture of the cities that create great infective areas in the homes, and the urban ways of life, where we have the construction of contact, the patterns of mixture, and increase in the susceptible. This type of problem is replicated in our studies by social classes of the type of containers of water that are in where the great tanks are in areas where they have no water, and where the most exposed classes are over there.
We have found differences in levels and also per person, where we can see twice. So these indices are twice the size where we see the priority in some priority sectors with regards to actually to the middle classes and the poor sectors, which is a difference per class on the prevalence rate of the problems of dengue. And also, at the end of the day, we have been working intensely in recognizing where is it that we have the social determination seen on the transmission of the vulnerability distribution systems of the decision in public policies of the governments at federal and local level on the collective capacity of the different types of neighborhoods in the cities and of the relationship that each one of the system has also with the big ecosystems. So as we have seen, we believe that this action, obviously, from the integrated perspective of social determination, allows us to acknowledge critical aspects to guide the intersectorial process in where the health ministry, the local administration, also the organization of small producers, and also different participating universities, we all start to understand that the different general processes, individual processes of social determination have to be actually tackled and worked with, not only strengthening the health services and the different actions based on the final problems. And in the case of Brazil, basically, the problems of food pollution is very important too. Here, we are to understand as basic or fundamental the problem summarized in the dossier that Abrasco prepared for the Congress as a consequence that was initially introduced in the meeting of Rio de Janeiro in 2012, which is the problem saying that the massive deregulated application of pesticides that is observed actually also in the uncontrolled growth rate of the application per hectare of millions of liters of pesticides, it's starting to be detected, and with the presence also of a sample of 100 food products, 28% have the presence of banned chemicals and 35 have chemical products, which is a highly concerning problem, which is observed actually in lettuce, in peppers, that can be observed actually in carrots, in every single product in terms of the food chain which is consumed in Brazil. And that there, now in the same study, we see a very important component that shows the contamination of the water sources with pesticides in the whole national territory in Brazil, and how, which is something which concerns us also in women in zones of high exposure. There's a presence of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 6 pesticides in the breastfeeding milk. So talking about security and food safety in this type of condition is something that's unreal, and also we need to have an integral perspective. We have to understand at the same time there's a gigantic convergence of big capitals invested in technological use that are not made necessarily thinking in the well-being actually in food, but we have to take ownership of the elements of life and increase profits. We see the monopoly of the seed, the transformation of production and biodiversity and global warming are aspects that we have to consider, and how this is done in spite of the fact that there is no shown, there's no determination. Well, actually, studies have been done in California, and the experimental studies from 2003 until 2011, we compare different crops. They are just greater, actually, the amounts of grains, actually, and also we have possibility of water in areas where the production is being done with agroecological systems than in the areas of monocultures with highly sophisticated and technological processes. So there's no justification of better productivity, because actually there's better productivity actually in ecosystems. Under this type of conditions, health, equality, and life are not cannot be realized. Is just they're just words. And we talk about civilization, it's something that is being expanded in Latin America. And there's this scenario, it's impossible to do prevention and sustainable control, for example, of every type of problem that might arise. We do believe that the economic model that reproduces and is fed by a civilization mode and a culture which is individualistic, in essence, consumerism with consumerism, and the multiplies waste is exactly the antithesis. In the antithesis, this goes against the integrated perspective that we are proposing in Isaacs. So, therefore, finally, we do need to get away from a paradigm that is focused on individualism and also in profits. But we have to go to include the collective, and the collective with the big phenomena that take part in the society. We understand the society, epidemiologically speaking. We know the keys to advance towards sovereignty, sustainability, solidarity, and health and security that are the most important factors of all. Since this full integration needs a different paradigm, we do need to advance further, and there's as we have an epistemological obstacle to overcome, and this poor understanding of the different of this type of differentiation when we talk about the Marmot text and when we talk about the Solar text, etc., with regards to the Latin American vision of determination. So making it a split or this division in differentiation is of extreme importance. But in the title of your workshop, new criticism towards equality, that notion of having given focus to equality is something that Isaacs has done very properly. We have to talk about equality because it's insufficient, cannot be isolated of other elements to think in the right to health in the new mode of life. We have to work together in the difference between equality thought as a just limited to consumption or just access to health services. So we had to think at equality or equity linked to a full integrated change toward a civilization based on solidarity. Equality as consumption is focused only in individuals and lifestyles, and the equality in consumption rates, while the equality linked to a new type of civilization, a deep change in life, implies in constructing a new solidarity-based life, avoiding a structural production or reproduction of inequality, leading to the accumulation of profits by some sectors of the society. We have to think evolve perspective with different sustainable lifestyles, with pro-solidarity, also with health and biosafety. Because of this, we do think at the same time we have to open the category of equality to the solidarity as brackets to bring them together. Thought as to the prominence of human rights and the nature over economy, the access to sustainable life quotas fair with fairness and dignity, and conscience consumption based on needs, responsible management of society and nature equation. We have to have a culture justice, and also we have to think in a broad-based vision of solidarity, including equality as one of the most important aspects. We are raising the fact that the motion of social determination should open up the way to a fight for the most important S's in life. Without those four S's, it will be impossible to build a real epidemiology. A public health would bring emancipation and would bring transformation. When we talk about four S's, we're talking the sustainability in the lifestyles and production styles, sovereignty, solidarity, and division of health and integrated biosafety, realized in every single aspect of life, in production, jobs, consumption, in daily life of family, in household, mobility, the spaces of the political organization, the spaces of cultural construction, and the spaces of the relationship of the human beings with nature. The commitment to our four S's are actually the guide on where we are to have to appoint at in our fight, in our struggle for health and public health for all. We have to give the vision of determinants and also determination. In the text that I have circulated, that given to Oscar, there's a detail of this type of arguments I'm going to give you now, just in a bird's eye view, because I only have a few minutes left. But I locate this differentiation between determination and determinants and the history of paradigms. Actually, in the ruptures, in order to construct the method of critical epidemiology in Latin America, and it's important to locate what are going to be the criteria to be able to analyze these paradigms. We believe that something fundamentally thinking health as a complex notion. Actually, health is a praxis, health is an object of reality, and the health as a subject or as cosmovisions of interpretation frameworks. Three elements that cannot be separated, but unfortunately, in classic epidemiology, conventional epidemiology, they're broken away, and also there is an artificial split or division. Here, we are going to introduce in the document that was circulated a matrix. In this matrix, we find a research project which the object, subject, and field categories are applied according to different categories in the analysis of one or two or three, four types of epidemiological paradigms: the causal linear paradigm, the ecological empirical one, and epidemiology that we call causal of transition with the determinant model, and the critical epidemiology model that in decades of the centuries, also from 19 until the current century, have a series of expressions of all social critical medicine, and also the lifestyle, eco-social epidemiology, and also from Loren one and social determination that we are raising here. There's a deep analysis of this type of relations that we are working now, especially. Also, we are going to have a publication in English and Spanish, and also this analysis, deep analysis of these paradigms are brought in this analysis in this publication. Well, I'd like to actually to stress with this important meeting of Isaacs, and that we have to work also in the rupture in the health as an object, as a subject, and so a rupture in the object, we have to go to have to overcome this public health and this epidemiology thought actually in causes, and also reductionist, and it's just one single empirical level, essentially static or imbalance, actually also that we had from previous epidemiology. We have to break away with this academic, unicultural, technocratic vision that this is present in its design. We have to break away with the functionalistic praxis that is accommodated within the scenario of the different conventional elements. The causal models that I cannot detail here, with the theoretical base of neopositivism, also with functionalism in the case of the ecologic empiric model, and in the causal linear models, where in these same models, there is a factorial vision, and also there is a factorial praxis that when you go into the text, also I comment this in detail, you'll be able to read it actually at your leisure. When we talk about different elements, the classic methodologies, we believe that the linear classic model, be it this multi-causal or one causal only, exactly is which it creates a series of inconsistency and the impossibility of going in social determination. Also, we have linear networks, but we're advancing toward the multi-causal models, which are more sophisticated, even with their mathematical models. When we approach the reality, when we see the different processes, they only see one part of the fragments of reality as they are to be recorded actually in observing these different effects. It's true in this type of phenomena. And also we can observe this phenomena without going into determination. And we cannot resolve this with this empirical analytical epidemiologists in spite of their robust arsenal. Also, in spite of statistics, we can't actually explain the different aspects aspects of health, lifestyles, it's impossible for us to understand the distribution per class of the actual intensities of actual danger processes or the differentiated vulnerability of the communalities in terms of societies. There's no way of understanding in depth either the society nature metabolism, be it the different causes. It's impossible to learn the society to be able to transform it. Finally, what emerges now actually is a new transition mode with the social determinant model, and also in this, and makes a transition in terms of opening up to new structures as an object of epidemiology and public health. And the model that has been raised by the WHO Commission, going back to solar airway texts of Marmot and other texts, even though they already introduce this type of factors, they introduce these extended notion of causes, and they talk about a very multi-level analysis.
And they locate these potentialities are lost due to the reasons that I'm going to mention now. And this model has the social structures as a causing system, as determinants that are structural causes, as external causes, as structures, as variables, and not as a category of analysis of a increase in capital or the reproduction of relations of power based on the relations of political property. It's a perspective of a multinational, multifunctional object with the international agencies, and has as a task the Millennium Goals, but not the transformation of the fundamental base of accumulation that concerns ourselves has generated conditions of social determinations. What we can do, or we can see regarding the model of determinants, that as it changes the structures and variables and not in categories of analysis of the historical movement of accumulation, cannot offer a direct criticism of the societal market and the doctrines in health. It doesn't analyze this process of social exclusion as axis of this or covers the metabolism socially. The categories and the causes, structural causes that are mentioned in the model, that's what we're calling transition model. There are formal abstractions based but empty of content. Determinants of intermediate or inequalities that are present but have lost the force, explaining force, when they are included in a system. They assume, as we did in the decade of the 70s, the dimension of the general, the particular, and singular, but changing them into levels of variables or causing factors. In doing this, they create a model to focus actions of government instead of working the relationship with the empiric order of capital, the way of capitalism regarding the health. Even though they show us a critical social criticism, it is a transition model, but it's a social criticism and a discourse of epidemiology. They also are in a rupture that have failed in the recovery, functional recovery of the causes, and places in the axis of praxis the notion of governance. But it was probably interesting. The comments is a category that should be analyzed slowly and has a potentiality of being interesting because it covers a new style of government different of the control, hierarchical control, but should take care of market regarding the interaction of the different actors, non-state and state actors, between the public and private. Interesting perspective that even though this paradigm shows this overcoming of this control, vertical control, presents a principle of ending the neoliberal of market control process. and participant health and reticular health. And there is a great debate regarding the wealth of the reticular nation of the action. And then that's in the great debate, theoretical, political debate of contemporary society and sociology. And this fact of determining the limits of these sectors can be really a problem regarding this trend are impossible to be carried out in societies where the monopoly and accumulation govern. The years of work have taught us that in certain contexts covered by different asymmetries and relational power, the good intentions like this ones are converted into hegemonic weapons between the private and public. It's not the good intentions of public actors as we, people from the academia or technical, but this is divided in the great relations of power that dictate the policies of the fact policies. That's why we're required to work with all the tools and all the vision of policies. And that's what the model of critical epidemiology wants. There is a great range of potentialities. The one at the end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century, Allende, Grosson, Sanders, etc., of the political economy and historical epidemiology of Almeida, the eco-social from Krieger, and the critical biology of health, the epidemiology of Lawrence with the critical situation of the states and oppositions that are linked to the critical realism and the critical and political reality that have emphasized what we have to articulate and understand and have ways of building the object, the subject, and the practice that I don't have time to extend myself in this, but understanding how each of these paradigms that we could call critical models, that are expression of critical models of the paradigm of the critical vision of accumulation of capital, are well given. And I'm not insisting here, I'm not talking about accumulation of capital because I have a notion of economical notion of reality, but I believe that this element, it's the guideline of the social reproduction regarding a cultural situation of our society. In our proposal of critical energy, a system of contradictions linked to the accumulation of capital, to the metabolism of the nature, society, and the relationship of political culture that moves and generates all of this process of social determination of life and the submission of health and biological, or the more complex, and the opposition and contradiction given in face of the construction of the four axes of life. This emancipation that works with the system of contradictions, leveling it in the reproduction model based on individualist and consumers and the relationship of power, public and private power, and the political systems of social determination. We defend that we are collaborating with the Ministry of Health in Ecuador, what allows us to do with our limited capacity in generating a public construction of this managing of this. We tell them the importance of understanding that society, the bodies, psychophysical bodies of life are linked, and the policies of health should take into account that in each level we have contradictions between the protective support processes and the destructive processes. And when we understand this, we're going to be able to make a profound prevention and be able to make a profound prevention in all of these elements, not only in the final effects and the residues of life. So we present the possibility of fighting in constructing the epidemiological models of public health regarding the 4 axes of life. We cannot make control and prevention of cancer, of toxicity, massive toxicity, of discapacity, or the chronic diseases unless we start working in a great reproductive route, that is the social, political, economical area. The social determination then starts working this area dialectic between society in all of this dimension at the environment, Pachamama, and nature, life, the rights that we have protect, besides the human rights, and together this allows to build the great social determination of life. I'm stress the first rupture that are necessary of critical epidemiology. The social determination as overcoming the causes. The social repercussion has to overcome the phenomenal levels. The dialectic conversation of the society, nature, as overcoming the empirical ecology. The technical and a quantitative point of view, the social situations and empirical and classes and power relations and overcome, create the distribution of health and expose the complexity. That's why we have proposed the categories, the 4 axes of life, and the present ruptures that we need to reach with the rights of nature. How do we do this? When we know that the democratic governments of Latin America, including, are involved in a complete debate regarding the contradiction between the need to produce, to finance the social models and benefits of a population, but how to protect nature. That's a debate that is not conclusive, it isn't ended, and had to be worked. And this could have an important role. How to build an interculturality to the gender social situations, how to create a sustainable civilization, and biosafe, to overcome this productivist society that depends on competitive, badly paid, and waste-producing society, to overcome this arrogant academia. How to build a reform linked to a revolution, emancipatory revolution, to overcome the reform of public health. We are giving a definition of critical epidemiology that we invite you to visit, and we're going to propose it in the forums, debate forums, and research and technical and teaching forums. This paradigm of the modern era in Latin America was based on rupture. The first rupture, the classical one, multi-cause. And the empirical model of the ecological epidemiology of Leonard Card and those social determinants of health. We should create a difference between this, and it's urgent from my point of view that ISAG would make this debate, so have a long-term vision that would give an impulse and for all what the ministries of health are doing in the area. Then there's an historic situation between the vision of social determination regarding the vision of the social determinants. I'm sorry that in this we really do not agree with some dear friends, but I'm learning each time that we should talk clearly, and we have a passion. We have to say it very clearly. If not, if you try to just be friendly, that really won't work. And I think that it's a mistake. So we have to go towards an intersectionality, as you mentioned that, is a new type that I think the triangle of the policies of macros is an interesting working tool that we have to have a political project for rupture in health. Health cannot be a project built surrounding a state of governance or the Millennium Goals. These goals, we establish them, should be a particular model of this rupture regarding this civilization that is drowning us. And it's not only the need of a project to free the classes, but also the communication freedom, not to pretend a green capitalism or friendly capitalism when we're seeing that is a great thing, that defeat of this capitalism. I have seen a note in the newspaper that 100,000 of hectares are being bought by big international companies in Canada. And this, together with Cuba, and how can we talk about a discourse if we don't have a political project of rupture? And we have to do this with the organizations so we can have a governance, participation, sovereign participation with popular base, not to confuse the taking of power.
Beautiful, because in the political power confuses actually with the verticalism also, and also the technocratic aspect of the extreme right. Actually, this is harmful. We have to have deep roots. The government will have social basis, and then and also the public organization, the organization should be spearheading this process, and obviously also have a deep scientific, technical capabilities needed. For this purpose, we have to use different types of tools and not the same tools that were used in the past. And have to go towards and re-articulation with clinic and different health services are a fundamental tool. In the document that we have sent to you, we made a proposal on how to network critical epidemiology together with integrated clinic and also the application incorporation of integration therapies actually in the right to health, where on the one hand the epidemiology protects, prevents, promotes, and repairs life, and the clinic cures, prevents, actually promotes the person, and also in articulation within a proposal of an with an emancipatory project. This is why, and this is my point, this is a more interesting part actually of my participation. We have to go to this final part of the presentation in which we invite you formally. I want to invite Oscar and Mr. Temporas, our friends from Pablo Gabela, from Fiocruz. If you could please help us. You are a fundamental of supportive counterparts. So we together with the public, with the health ministries, we have to work in these new visions, and so that we can defeat once and for all the adoption of the paradigms of the North, or the positivist North, because there are people who think about this, but the positivist North as criteria for the development of public health and epidemiology designed. For November, we are organizing a PhD doctorate workshop with the universities in Colombia, the health ministry, the ministry also and she was going to open the meeting with us, Fiocruz, the British Columbia University. We have established the dream that Isaacs will join us in this whole process to help us to strengthen and reshape a workshop in with these key elements, also with respectful, actually of listening to the potentialities and different products with respect. We can take this to programs in actually of research and education, and now we are doing this with the support of the health ministry with a new epidemiology master's degree. We have a PhD in Latin America. Also, there are many centers of people. They are doing counter-hegemonic effort. They have to be listened to so they can reach actually a public university construction actually that will actually pave the way toward the future. The only thing that interferes with our learning process is the education that we're giving to us in the training centers, the work with traditional old-fashioned paradigms. We have to defeat these old-fashioned paradigms with a new sovereign thought, with a thought which is autarkic, which is counter-hegemonic thought that will will include actually the critical thought to defeat finally capitalism and the accumulation of capital. Actually, in every type that I research it more, I see this more clearly. Actually, we have to have a civilization so that we can say that we overcome the class barrier and the big class differences, the right to health. We have to fight also for the survival of the. We have to work actually in order to avoid the extermination, elimination of the human race. We had to go to the critical note to the generation of different technicians that will follow us in our quest. I've said, Fabiola, I dream of a day in which we will be able to work together with Fiocruz with the certification of a production as an element of regional integration, the tools for social control and accountability, interculturality, interdisciplinarity, and in general, based on this, on democracy and public health for the collectivities. Because of this, we have to understand clearly that science, critical epidemiology, collective health, as any other symbolic operations, are true expressions that actually have been transfigured and transforms and also of the relationships of power of a society. You know very well, you are fighters, that you know very well that what I'm saying is the absolute truth. And also we cannot play actually the game. And because of this, that we invite you all to support us in this endeavor, what we are in our endeavor in a project for November. And I'm ready to participate together with you in every single debate that we are going to hold. Thank you very much for giving me the privilege of opening this wonderful workshop in Isaacs.